right, Bill Greene, the one and only. Welcome back to the podcast. It's good to see you again, buddy.
Yeah, man, good to be here. A lot to talk about. So ready to dive right in.
You've been doing all right?
Real good. Real good.
Good. Spring is always. I feel like it's coming into the time period of the year, at least for me, like sports wise. Like I'm not a big baseball fan either, so I'm watching NBA, I'm watching hockey, I'm watching as much spring football that I can, and preparing for the dark days of summer where there's nothing really for us to watch other than baseball, and count down the days until we get that first kickoff.
Yeah. Yeah, I love baseball and I love golf playing and watching. So summertime's a great time for me for sports, but nothing beats, football in the
Yeah,
fall. And right now, I mean, my thing is waiting for the NBA or the NFL schedule release. I mean,
yeah,
it's almost like a holiday anymore to people that go to games, and I've got friends coaching all across the NFL. Carolyn and I, we love going, making weekends in, different cities, and I'm really lucky that the people I know that know well, one is coaching for the Rams in LA, so she's going to love to go there.
mm,
Um, Vegas, of course, is her favorite city in the world, so we'll go to Vegas for a game, and then we love going to Boston. I've got buddies coaching for the Patriots, guys coaching at Boston College, so we make a weekend of that. So it's turned a person who's not a super sports fan into kind of a sports fan now.
hmm,
Just because she loves visiting the city, she loves the hoopla,
yeah,
surrounding NFL games. And as long as we pick a game that's where the temperature is 50, 60 and above, she's fine. You
yeah.
know,
You don't have to be a
we're not,
big sports fan to enjoy the pageantry and in
yeah,
person,
yeah,
of it all. Watching on TV is a little bit different, maybe. I'm sure my wife
right,
would love to go and
yeah.
do a
Oh,
lot of that, but yeah,
yeah, we're not going to see the Patriots in November. I can promise you
yeah,
that.
yeah. I
Uh,
would,
the
I would
Boston
not
trip has
advise.
Yeah, so I've got to make sure that we got Boston College and the Patriots at home in the same
Mm,
weekend. A lot of times that works, and a lot of times, boy, it gets tricky because we just do not want to do cold weather games. So the Rams were
yeah,
probably set. Vegas were always set, and then we got to see what the Pats and DC how that shapes up. So really looking forward to the NFL schedule release, and I think it's next week. I think they're planning May. I think May 11th was
yeah.
the
I was gonna
date.
say I think it's the 11th, so
So yeah,
that's what
so that
last I saw at least.
yeah, big thing for us to get our fall plans, set up. So
Right.
we look forward to that.
Yeah, and until then, when we've got plenty to
Oh
cover at least in the last week with some of the new portal additions, portal
yeah,
losses that Ohio State's had here over the last, like you said, week, last few days, especially. I know a couple have come out. Definitely
yeah,
want to touch on as you can kind of see on the screen here, but class of 24, kind of where we see that going. There's always some kind of movement, conversations and things like that over the summer. So plenty to keep us in touch back with Ohio State football to come. And of course, the NFL draft being last week. A lot to talk about there. Biggest surprise for me personally, the Browns actually taking numerous Ohio State players, whether it be draft or undrafted free agent. But I'll
yeah.
take it. I will take it anytime I can.
Usually doesn't go that way.
No, it usually doesn't. Makes no sense, but it usually doesn't. But we'll start off obviously with the portal additions. Two kind of major ones that have come from the last week, as you had your write up on BuckeyeScoop.com. The last I saw, was that put up today?
I think I've had some stuff all week this week, but I don't think anything, today.
Okay. Yeah,
So we've had
I'd seen your kind of portal additions
yeah,
breakdown of kind of your thoughts. So would love to give a little bit of a snippet of kind of your thoughts. Josh Simmons, offensive tackle, obviously coming in huge need, especially we saw Ben Christman enter the transfer portal as well. So the room is getting thinner.
Yeah.
We'll see kind of where it goes after the spring game. I think there was a lot of question marks still around what that line's going to look like. But how do you see Josh Simmons kind of coming in from the portal, and do you think he's kind of like plug and play right away?
Well, I think he starts. I mean, mainly because he's played a year of college football where he was a starter. He got a lot of reps, a lot of snaps. So, and then when you look at who does he have to beat out to be a starter, I think he's a starter. So I think they needed this guy, and I think they're planning on him being a starter. So we'll see where it goes. I think he's the right tackle for sure, and I think
Mm,
the left is so. I think it's unsettled. I wouldn't be shocked to see Josh Simmons playing the left. Maybe I don't know. I mean, this is Justin Fry's got a real. He's got a job ahead of him here.
yeah,
And, when we get to late January and we start to evaluate how each position group did, Justin Fry's group is going to be the number one group we talk about. Either they let the season
mm,
down, got the season crushed, or they were a super strong position group. And at that point, that guy's going to deserve a lot of praise. Last year he did a really good job. Okay. But he was dealt a nice hand.
yeah,
He was dealt three queens and two tens. It was hard to mess that one up. But this year, I mean, he's really got his work cut out for him. Another thing that people I don't think are talking about is the fact that Josh Simmons, you know, you wish he would have been there in February, not in late April.
mm,
You would have loved to have had that guy go through
yep,
spring ball. They're not going to get that. So I think that is something that, man, you wish, that guy would have made his decision not long after the Georgia loss, got him into school, got him into the strength and conditioning program, and got him into paths and got him on the field.
yep.
So they would have loved to have had that. Well, you're not going to have that. So, you look forward to getting him in the fall and seeing where things are. But,
Yeah.
Justin would have loved to have had him a while ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially too, just with getting him around the unit. I mean, it's one thing, especially with the coaching staff and getting kind of them involved with development for him and everything, but also just like cohesiveness of him playing alongside. If he's going to be the plug and play guy and take over somebody's spot that showed in the spring game, then there's going to be some continuity that needs to be developed, some just camaraderie, I guess, that needs to be developed for that, which can be hard to do right away, especially. I guess and I know he was slated to go visit Florida too, correct?
Right. And that was, Florida was not hot and heavy on him. They've added some O linemen in the portal. Florida has totally rebuilt their O line through the portal already. So it was kind of looked at that Josh Simmons was kind of just an add-on for
Mm,
them. Well, then in the last week, they went hot and heavy on Josh Simmons, especially from an NIL perspective.
yeah,
Okay. So I was a little concerned about that, but commits to Ohio State. And from what I was told, there will be no Florida visit, which is good.
yeah. I would hope so. Not at this point, at least. There might
No,
be bigger
not
question marks.
it. They went from lukewarm on him to
Yeah,
now heavy on him. Florida wants him. And I think they've gotten 3 O line transfers so far before Josh. So I don't expect him to visit Florida this week, and I think he's done deal for Ohio State, and I think that's great news for Ryan Day and Justin Fry.
yeah. No, much needed. And
Yeah,
another much needed position potentially. I mean, obviously with I'm going to butcher his last name, but how do you pronounce it? Igbonison?
you pronounce the first name, I'll do the last name.
It's bad. I'm just gonna avoid it. We know who we all know who we're talking about here. He's
He's good. I mean,
yeah,
Igmano's going to start. Unquestionably, he's going to start, and he'll be alongside Denzel Burke
mhm,
at the other corner. And I expect Igmanoson to be a dude. I mean, not just a plug in. Where I
yeah,
saw Cam Brown. Cam Brown to me busted his butt, did his best, played his hardest, good worker, high character.
yep,
All that aside, they need better.
yeah.
Yeah, they need
He had flashes, but it wasn't
better. He did.
consistent.
he got the most out of his ability. There were some injuries there, I think, that hurt him, but they need better.
Yeah.
That whole defensive backfield has to be better. So I think you've got your two corners now. He was a big ad. They got him early too, so that was nice. He's been around a while now, so he doesn't have to learn the system, learn the guys, learn the coaching staff the way Simmons will have to.
Yep.
So we'll see. And then of course they added Lorenzo Styles also.
Yep.
Which that one's really interesting to me, and I can't say that I know Lorenzo and Sonny and the parents all that well, but I had conversations with all four of them. Super impressive family. Lorenzo was just a great kid to follow in high school. So classy, so mature. I mean, I thought he should have played corner exclusively, because forget this wide receiver stuff. Although he was a starter at Notre Dame as a wide receiver. So you got to be pretty good to do that.
Yeah.
But I thought coming out of high school, I thought he was a potential NFL guy, as a corner. And I saw so many of these guys that came out of high school, and it's so much fun to catch touchdown passes. I mean, I've never done it. I can only imagine how much fun it would be. And I saw it with Marshawn Lattimore, Gary and Conley, back as far as Bradley Roby. These guys were they were good high school wide receivers. But, you want to be a millionaire, get yourself over there and play corner. You know what I mean? Because like Lattimore, Roby, Gary and Conley, they were not going to be first-round draft picks as wideouts. Probably could have started at Ohio State, probably could have been good players, just like Lorenzo was at Notre Dame, a starter, a good player. I don't think the NFL was salivating over Lorenzo Styles as a wideout in another year. That just wasn't the case. Get him in here, get him back on the defensive side of the ball. He's got perfect corner skills. He's got the length. He's got great footwork. He just hasn't done it now for 2 years. So where's he going to be? I don't know. I had written that maybe a redshirt year might be best for him. Just come in and don't be in a hurry to get to the NFL. Don't be in a hurry to be all Big Ten. Step back here a minute, okay? You still got 3 years of eligibility with the COVID year, maybe in fourth. I don't know.
Yeah.
You got time to develop. So it was funny because I actually talked to a MAC conference defensive coordinator, and somehow Styles' name came up, and I said, I think he's got a red shirt. And he's like, well, but you don't decide that in April. That's not a decision for today. He said, you're putting the cart way ahead of the horse. He said, you get him in, you see where he's at. You don't even have to make that decision in fall camp. He can play in, I think, 4 games now? I think they changed the rule.
Yeah, I think it's 4.
4 and still redshirt. He said, it's not a decision you make in April. It's not even a decision you make in mid-August. Chill out. Lorenzo, his play will decide where he has to be in 2023. Maybe he is behind a bunch of guys and then redshirt him. That's fine. But maybe he gets there and it clicks for him.
Yeah, that was going to be my
on, and he's challenging guys. He's in the 2 deep. He's a contributor. And maybe there's an injury. And all of a sudden he might be a starter. He said, don't put the cart in front of the horse. Ohio State will determine where Lorenzo is along the way in 2023, and they will react accordingly. But if he's a 2 deep guy, which he may be, then forget the redshirt stuff. He's contributing.
Yeah, I was going to say, assuming
he's got the skill, and that's the thing. It's just how quick does it have to be for him to get that back?
Yeah. No, that's kind of where I was going to go with it is, assuming he is able to get back to, what you saw out of him as a cornerback coming out.
He's a starter then at some point.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I would have him ranked, if he gets back to where I thought he could be and, takes to the coaching, and then he's as good as Denzel Burke,
Mm.
better than Cam Brown and probably as good as the Ole Miss transfer. I mean, he's got that kind of talent, and the work ethic is off the chart. Very mature, and a guy he's gonna get what he should get. And
Yeah.
you love those kind of kids. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
just love when those guys. We don't know what his ceiling is right now, but he's going to hit it. Whatever it is, he's going to get there. So
Yeah.
you love to have kids like that. I think it's going to be a great influence on Sonny. Being the older brother, and I think being close to home, I think is going to be a help to him. Great parents, great family. I think this transfer just brings out the best in Lorenzo. And whether that's October or 2024, we're going to find out. But I think
Yep.
potentially I see him as a definite starter at Ohio State and a potential NFL guy.
Well, I think all of Scoop Nation is looking forward to hopefully that happening. Also, Denzel Burke's got to play better himself too. He didn't have a great year
Has to
last
be
year,
better. No, he
and
has to be better.
I think we all kind of assume he's going to get back to what we saw in flashes, especially his freshman year, and that's not a sure thing either. So, got to have guys like this that have the talent, have the potential there, and see what happens. It could pan
Right.
out better than we had expected. So, obviously, with portal ads come portal losses. There's only so many scholarship athletes that Ohio State can field. So, had a couple names that dropped off of the roster here over the last few days: Caleb Burton and Caleb Brown, namely the two wide receivers. I think what Caleb Burton was like the 20th, 21st wide receiver in his class, and Caleb Brown, I think, was more exciting of a pickup. He played really well in Chicago. Um, but obviously, with the depth at the wide receiver position, there's only so many guys that can come in and play, and especially with Carnell Tate showing as good as he has this spring. I mean, I don't know that it's anything that Buckeye fans are going to be too terribly hurt over. We've got Brian Hartline. We're recruiting at a really high level at the position too. So, good to see them go and try and get somewhere where they can show their talent, show their skill set, and get on the field. I don't know that they would have been on the field. I mean, maybe Caleb Brown. I know there's been a lot coming out from kind of insider sources with Caleb Burton, and maybe he wasn't kind of transitioning, into college ball the same way that some of the other younger receivers have been. And the other big loss would have been Ben Chrisman, just at a position of need, obviously. But with the add of Josh Simmons, I think it's we're better off adding Simmons and losing Chrisman than keeping Chrisman and not getting
Right.
Simmons. But
Right.
what are your thoughts just with like the current losses? Anybody else that Ohio State fans should kind of be on the I guess up and up with players that might be or transferring out, kind of freeing up some space either for additional transfers or even just as we'll get here in a second to the class of 24.
Yeah, you hate to mention names. In one of my blogs, I think a week ago, I said that I was given two names, and those two have,
Mm,
have moved on. And so, but I never mention names, and it's just out of respect to these players. And with the wide receivers, I mean, that was all based on, well, number one, you've got three studs coming back.
mm,
Okay. And, Harrison's the best receiver in the country. Probably would have been the first receiver picked if he was in this draft,
yeah.
the one that just concluded. Ibuka, had he been in this recent draft, would have been, I don't know. I would have taken him over Addison. I know that. So he would have been maybe a late first round pick. So those two are back. And then Julian Fleming is a guy that I don't think Buckeye Nation appreciates at all.
Yeah.
But as your three guy, I mean, he's an amazing three guy. Okay. You look at the catches, the yards per catch, which was super high as Harrison or Ibuka, the touchdowns. Julian Fleming's a perfect number three. And saying that, he's going to get pushed by Carnell Tate.
Hmm.
Okay. Carnell Tate will be on the field this year. And if you look at the guys that were freshmen last year with Burton, Brown, and the others, They got less snaps last year than walk-on receiver Reese Stocksdale. Okay, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
That is a huge red flag. Reese Stocksdale will not outsnap Carnell Tate or Brandon Innes this year. There's no walk-on going to get more snaps than those two this year. I promise you that. And that doesn't even include the two Rogers kids,
Yeah.
who are both really good. So I think these guys saw the writing on the wall. And then if you look even further down the road, you clear out Harrison, Fleming, Igbuka, get out of the way. Okay, I got my shot. They got J.J. Smith coming in. And J.J. Smith, I'm telling you right now, he is going to start day one at Ohio State. I don't care about Tate. I don't care who else is there. And I love all those guys. The Rogers, Brandon Innes was my dude as an 8th grader. Tate, love him. J.J. Smith will start first day as a Buckeye. So you look at all that when you're Burton and Brown, and it's like, when do I get to play?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that those guys aren't good players, because, all you got to do is look at when a guy named Jamison Williams walked out the door because he didn't know where does he fit in. Shoot, he darn near led Bama to a national title and ended up being a first-round pick with a blown-out knee. You get drafted in the first round with a blown knee, you're special. But Jamison Williams left Ohio State. So, doesn't mean Burton and Brown can't play. It just means there's a log jam there.
Yeah.
And they're looking for opportunity. And it sure wasn't going to come this year with all those monsters coming back. And then when you look down the road, it's kind of like, this is probably the right time to make this move for me.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you
like you said, we wish those two the best. I won't be surprised if one of them becomes a star at Purdue, Kentucky. Won't shock me in the least.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, if you're being recruited at wide receiver for Ohio State, like you said,
Wow.
you can play. Brian
Yes.
Hartline knows how to evaluate the talent, and it's
Yes.
definitely there. So I'm looking forward to seeing kind of their success. I loved seeing Jameson Williams be as successful as he did, albeit at Alabama, which wasn't great, but you know. I would want to see those guys go and perform well and make a name for themselves and get themselves into the NFL.
Yeah.
I
And
think,
then, we also mentioned, I do want to touch on Ben Chrisman.
yeah,
Great kid, great family. Really enjoyed, getting to know him as a recruit. I think he can play. We'll see. I expected that he would have been a starter by now. So, maybe I misevaluated him, or, sometimes things just don't work here. And then you go down the road, across the street, and it works perfectly. Ben's got talent, and Ben is a good kid. So why it hasn't worked out for him, I don't know. But I wouldn't give up on him either. It won't shock me to see him transfer somewhere, go to Michigan State, go somewhere else,
yeah,
go to Vanderbilt, smart kid, and end up being a starter and being a productive player. So
yeah,
I think the three guys that have left, I don't think they're bad football players, and I don't think that they're kids that we're done with. I think they all three can be starters, even at the Power 5 level going forward. So I don't think we've seen the end of these three guys at all.
yeah. And I wonder too if it's with Ben Chrisman's situation, if it's I think we kind of look at the offensive line and we've got question marks across the offensive line, and it doesn't seem as though maybe Ben Chrisman was maybe had the opportunities that he thought he should have gotten given some of that uncertainty. And like I said, bringing a guy like Josh Simmons in, somebody's going to get left kind of behind in that. And maybe
Right.
that guy is Ben Chrisman, and he's kind of going to take the opportunity that's available and that he believes he needs to have.
Yeah.
So, good on him for making that decision. I'm sure it's never an easy decision
No.
to leave the university that you've committed to initially and that you would ideally like to stay at, especially being from Ohio. Like it's a pretty big deal as well. But I think you mentioned it with a couple of the guys coming in from 24, particularly J.J. Smith, but obviously we've got Mylan Graham too, another 5-star receiver. So moving into the class of 2024, currently number 2 ranked class. I think we have like a 93 something kind of average star rating. So pretty solid class, only behind Georgia in that sense for star ratings and kind of highest rated players. Behind that team up north, obviously for the actual class size, but two less players. We've got time to make that ground up, especially with some of the guys that I think we kind of expect to commit to Ohio State. But how do you see this class kind of panning out or standing up with some of the most recent classes for Ohio State overall? And where's maybe some of like the big movements for positions that you see kind of coming, either late spring, early summer, before the season or during the high school football season?
Yeah, I'm usually not never the when guy. Like when is he going to commit? Like I'm usually not that guy. I don't usually get too wrapped up in when. I'm always looking at who do you sign?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So whether they commit, a year early or the night before signing day doesn't really matter to me. It's who do you end up with? And I think they're going to end up with Bryce Young. I think they're going to get Miles Lockhart. I think they're going to get Aaron Scott. And I know a lot of people are concerned about Aaron Scott and Michigan. And I mean, I may be getting bad info. I don't bat 1,000, but I think all three of those guys are going to be in this class.
Mm.
So I not worried about all the Michigan stuff with Bryce Young or Aaron Scott.
And Bryce West.
Bryce West, I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bryce,
Got draft on your mind. I see it.
they would take Bryce Young if he wanted
Yeah.
to trade Bryce Young, but they're not getting him. But West, Lockhart, Scott, I think solid three corners. They need corners. And man, can't go wrong with those three.
Yeah, and again, position of need. I think that's huge. Having Ohio players that are that highly rated at that position is always good. I mean, you look back at like Paris Johnson and all the offensive linemen that were highly rated coming out of Ohio, and like having that in your backyard is always good. It's why Georgia, Alabama. I mean, they're always going to be difficult to get those guys from the South and get them away from those schools.
Right.
But I think I agree with you. I mean, I would be surprised if um, either one landed at Michigan or really anywhere else at this point. Um,
And it's
I, the
happened.
the
You
one
know,
question I have too, and I think usually by this point we've seen more movement and more traction on it is defensive line.
yeah, that one, I don't know. I'm having a hard time getting a handle on that one. So I wish, there's a defensive tackle at IMG, Jaden Jackson, and I think they're in good shape with him. I've got a list. Yeah, when you're looking at D line, I don't know. I'm going to wait and see who shows up in June. Visiting, working out, whatever. I
Mhm.
don't have a lot of names for you, to be honest with you, on the D line, and that is an area that they need to hit this year. They had some misses in the end last year, kind of
Yeah,
disappointing DN losses. So we'll see what happens here. I wish I had a bunch of names to throw out, and I don't right now.
yeah,
I have names, about 20 names I could throw out, but in terms of who do I think is going to be in this class, I'm
mm.
not ready yet for that. But
What?
I trust Larry Johnson, and we'll see. I think it's going to obviously it's going to develop later as a group than
Yeah.
what the other positions look like right now.
Yeah, I think the good thing too, and the silver lining looking at it is it's not just an Ohio State concern. Like looking at the highest rated defensive linemen in the country, the majority of them haven't made a commitment to
Yeah,
anywhere. So it's not solely, oh well, Ohio State hasn't taken a defensive lineman yet. It's these guys are taking a little bit more time. They're doing their due diligence and they're evaluating what opportunity might be the best fit for them. And the good thing is there's still a lot of names on that board. Like you said, 20 plus names that I'm sure
I'm,
Larry Johnson is, full on. And I trust that he's, developing the relationships and getting in front of the guys that he wants. And,
yep,
push comes to shove at the end of the day, there's going to be defensive linemen in the class. And even looking at too, I know it's kind of up in the air. Maybe somebody like a Taiwan Malone that I know had Ohio State rated really, really highly in his recruitment as well, and he's in the transfer portal. So there's a lot of possibilities.
long way to go. It's still, it's early May. I mean, it's just give it time.
Yeah,
I always think for me, the cutoff for me for not even panic, but concern, I think that time is for me is always 4th of July. That
Mm,
to me is a signature moment for me. Fourth of July has always been a time where I always look at the board. Who do you have? Who do I think you're going to get? And where are you in trouble here right now?
yeah.
Yeah. And so too early now. We've got officials coming up now in June. We didn't, it's great to see these summer officials. And then guys come to camp to work out, build that relationship with a position coach. So way too early to have, I don't even want to use panic. It's way too early for
Mm,
concern. You just want to feel your needs. You know what I mean? And that's why I really liked what Tony Alford has done right now. You
yeah.
know, they last year was very unfortunate and not Tony Alford's fault. I mean, they did a great job recruiting Mark Fletcher. They only wanted one running back last year. They got their one, committed early, and he was their guy. And then NIL took effect. And
Mm,
and I'm not one of those guys that blames every loss on NIL. And I would think since NIL has come into being, this might be the first one I've ever blamed on NIL. So, but this was an NIL loss. Nothing Tony Alford could do about it. You kind of wanted to see him rebound late and maybe, poach somebody else from another school. Didn't happen. So you got nothing last year running back wise. And landing two right now at this early juncture, man, that is really good. It speaks well of Ohio State, speaks well of Tony Alford's ability to get out there. And there was a need for two
mm,
running backs in this class. He got two good ones. Peoples
yeah.
to me is the best running back in the country. To me, he's a faster J.K. Dobbins. And then you get the Lyle kid, who I think is a perfect number two complement to Peoples. So you had a need, you plugged it.
Yep.
And now that's Larry Johnson. Let's go. But we'll see. It's way
Yeah.
too early for
I've
concern.
have no doubts about Johnson picking it up and, like I said,
No,
getting who he got. But
I
I
don't at all.
agree. I think Alford definitely answered a lot of questions that maybe Ohio State fans had of him, and his recruiting acumen.
Yeah,
After last year,
yeah,
but and I think too, Mayan Williams staying almost buys an extra year for
yeah,
him to kind of go and get the guys that he
yeah,
needs. Because you still got Hayden for a couple of years. Obviously, I think too with Evan Pryor, assuming he can stay healthy. I mean, that's another guy that can contribute and take some of the snaps maybe away from some of those guys here and there to give their legs a little bit of rest. But I think it's a good room. But yeah, I agree. It was much needed, and the addition of Jordan Lyle committing, which kind of came as a surprise. I hadn't even really heard the name, and then just out of
absolutely.
nowhere.
That was out of nowhere.
Yeah, but I'll
Uh,
take it. I will gladly take it, and
That's a
if they're
pleasant out of nowhere.
if
And that
they're
was
accepting the commitment from a guy, I'm all in on him. So I'll
well,
see
he's the
what.
St. Thomas Aquinas kid, so he's playing
Yeah,
against the best competition in America,
I saw
and
somewhere
then
did he average 11 yards a carry? Is
yeah, the
that right?
speed is off the charts. I mean, he needs to get stronger. He's got to get bigger. There's things that he might not do well, but what he does do well, he can fly.
Hmm.
So you love that.
Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it gladly. And then, obviously, those guys are guys that you expect will be able to come in, make a name for themselves, and eventually get like all of the new NFL Buckeyes after this weekend to the NFL draft. Obviously, the big names we kind of expected: CJ going number 2 to the Texans, the Will Levis love, and ridiculous going number 1 overall played out kind of how I thought it would, and how I think it should have played out. I don't know that he was um, a necessarily a day one guy, and definitely not the first, second quarterback on the board for most people. But CJ to the Texans, Paris Johnson obviously getting drafted number 6 to Arizona, Smith and Jigba going to Seattle, and then you've got kind of your later round guys. Like I've said at the top of the show, seeing the Browns draft Dewan Jones, seeing the Browns draft Luke Whippler, whether or not they are, starter caliber players over the Browns offensive line right now, who knows? But I'll always take the Browns drafting Ohio State players because they historically haven't, and they've been beaten as many times as I can remember by players from Ohio State that got drafted by who else but the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Baltimore Ravens. So I will gladly accept it, and I hope they do really well. And then there was the undrafted free agents, Cameron Brown to the Chargers, which was good for him. Jerron Cage to New Orleans, Ronnie Hickman to Cleveland, Tanner McAllister to Cleveland, and Aaron Vincent to Buffalo potentially. So, any really big surprises to you of guys that maybe went earlier than expected, later than expected, or not drafted at all, like potentially a Ronnie Hickman. I think he was one that I expected maybe to go in one of the later rounds myself.
Yeah, I did a draft preview. I've got a friend who is an NFL scout, can't give the name, can't give the team, but pretty much everything he said came to fruition. I mean, one of the things he said was that Ronnie Hickman should have came back to, and this was before the draft, not after. Before
Mm,
the draft, he kind of said that Ronnie Hickman should have came back to school. That was a mistake going that he was a mistake. So, and that came to fruition. The one thing too is that that strikes me is that if you look at Paris Johnson and DeJuan Jones, I mean, there is a gap there in talent, but Paris was projected as a top 10 pick. DeJuan was projected as a 30 to 40
yeah.
pick. And if you look at when those guys walked off the field after playing Georgia, what did each guy do from that time period to the draft? Paris did everything right. Great guidance from his mother. Sharp kid. Just the interviews, the pro days, the combine. He did everything perfectly, and he was rewarded. And he was drafted where he should have been drafted. He's earned everything that has come his way. Did everything right. And then you got DeJuan, and if you look at all the reports, combine, pro day, interviews, did everything wrong.
Hmm.
He cost himself a ton of money. He was projected as a 30 to 40 guy in the draft. And, the story that stood out to me was Mike Tomlin being at the OSU Pro Day, asking him to get on a scale because they knew he'd gained a lot of weight, a lot
Hmm.
of bad weight since the season. And DeJuan saying no. And I don't know how you tell Mike Tomlin no
Right.
with his reputation, whether, no matter how you feel about the Steelers, Mike Tomlin is a guy that is so well respected within NFL circles that if Mike Tomlin asked you to change a tire in his car, you should do it.
Hmm.
Let alone, when he wants you to get on a scale and you do it. And if the
Yep.
number's bad, you tell him, hey, I'm gonna get this down. I've kind of let myself go a little bit here, but you don't refuse him. You don't refuse to do drills at the combine. You don't refuse to
Yeah.
do things you're asked to do at pro day. Um, Paris did everything right. DeJuan did everything wrong. And that's why when you look at what each guy signs for here, Paris was always going to sign. He was always going to be in a better
Yeah.
position and sign for more money than DeJuan. But the gap between what Paris is going to get for his first contract and what DeJuan's going to get for his first contract, there's going to be a far wider gap there than what
Yeah.
should have been. If DeJuan would have listened to Monica, like Paris did, listen to DeJuan would have listened to Paris's mom on how to do interviews, how to work out, what to do, he would have been drafted a lot higher and he'd be a lot richer today.
Mm.
So, one guy did everything right. One guy did a lot of things wrong. And these are job interviews with guys that have conducted interviews before and
Yep.
they know what red flags are there. Now, DeJuan can still go ahead and have a great NFL career, but the start of it, he hasn't done things the way it should have been done.
Yeah. He's got an uphill battle to get to
Yeah,
where he
that is.
would have already been had he kind of just had his ducks in a row and took care of the business the way that to for lack of a better terminology, a professional would. I think that's the biggest thing is it shows maybe the kind of professionalism of those guys and what they're going to be willing to do at that next level, especially. And when you got to kind of backtrack on things like that and really prove yourself after the fact, you either have to have something just innately unique, which he's a massive human being, so maybe that's it. But yeah, he's got an uphill battle. I hope he does well. I hope he gets himself back to
Oh
where he
yeah.
needs to be. And I think the talent's there. It's just a matter of pushing himself to get to that. So, and not to mention it's for my Brownies, so I'll gladly want him to do well there. But Whippler too, I think he fell a little bit more than what I thought he was. A lot of question marks around maybe he should have come back and stayed another year or not. So, I'm never going to fault the guy for wanting to go make potentially millions and millions of dollars in the NFL, and we'll see what happens with him. But any other kind of just big surprises or anything that you expect from the guys that did get drafted? Where the highest ceiling is based on kind of landing spot and what they have.
Yeah, I love seeing Smith and Jigma go to Seattle. I'm not a Seattle fan per se, but boy, when you look at him in that offense, you've got to put so much into DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. There's no coverage left now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So he is going to get a ton of opportunities there because he's going to be wide open all the time. He is a great receiver, and he is going into a team where he's going to be the number 3. And when you look at JSN as a 3, when he's a 1, he's
Mhm.
as good as Olave or Wilson, just as good. But he's in a situation now where there's going to be no coverage rolled to him at all. He's going to be wide open. So now they do throw a ton of balls to Metcalf. They throw a ton of balls to Lockett. So he may not get the opportunities that he would get in a different situation, but he's going to be wide open. I promise you. And he'll have a big rookie year.
Could be too with Marvin Harrison coming out assuming he comes out the following year, 3 in a row with NFL Rookie of the Year potentially. I mean, looking back to the NFL, the defensive Rookie of the Year stint that Ohio State had, with the Bosa's and Chase Young, and
Mhm.
could be good. Marshawn Lattimore too. I forgot about him. He was up there, but yeah, it could be an interesting few years offensively for Ohio State Buckeyes in the NFL, and I definitely do. I agree. I look forward to him, playing opposite DK and snatching up all the balls. And granted, maybe from Geno Smith or not, but hey, they're still going to come to him. So,
Oh
but
yeah.
now, Bill, I appreciate it. That's all we had for today. So again, thank you for joining. Thank you for your insight and conversation. Definitely always a pleasure talking to you, and look forward to chatting again soon.
Anytime.